Fifth day of March 2025. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Dollison.
Here.
Commissioner Mercer.
Here.
Commissioner Gansler.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Yates.
Here.
And Mayor Birdsong.
Here. All right, we have our invocation, pledge of allegiance, presentation, and then we're going to have the strategic plan presentation. That will be at the end. We'll move that down tonight.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just offer a comment on 5D. We have invited Jay Jarvis, who's the director of Polk County Roads and Drainage Division, to attend on Monday evening to give the commission just an update on what's happening with Thompson Nursery Road. As you know from your last commission meeting, we did prepare a letter which you all have signed and will be sent to Polk County regarding the segment, or the phase 2, I think is what it's officially referred to, that goes out to US 27, and the Winter Haven City Commission's preference for a separated multi-use bike corridor along that road. But following some questions that came up through recent TPO meetings, we thought it would be a good idea to get an update just on where that project stands overall and what their corridor pathways are, and be able to answer any questions you may have. So.
Okay.
And that'll be Monday night.
Monday night.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we have the minutes, and we have no ordinances, first reading, consent agenda.
So if you like, I'll go through these rather quickly.
Yes, go
Item
ahead.
10A, this is to appoint Zach Drum to fill a slot that is available on the Airport Advisory Committee. We did a public advertisement for that vacant seat, and then went through the interview process in accordance with the resolution that established the Airport Advisory Committee. They had, I believe, 7 applications for that, and the committee, the Airport Advisory Committee had recommended appointment of Zach Drum to that. Zach's a local homegrown gentleman from here in Winter Haven who served as a combat aviator for the United States Navy, and is now back in our area and eager to contribute to the community by joining the Airport Advisory Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Item 10B, this is not too different from something that came to you a few meetings ago regarding the Wood Point subdivision. This is an agreement to provide traffic control and enforcement on private roads owned and under the control of the Lucerne Park Community Development District. So you can see the map on your screens there. This is going to be due north of the Walmart Distribution Center. So out near the Rolling Hills Cemetery off of Old Lucerne Park Road. And again, very similar situation that we will provide traffic control enforcement within that subdivision on an as-needed basis. The CDD is responsible for all of the signage and items that go along with that.
Okay.
Item 10C, this is an amendment to the Polk Regional Water Cooperative Grant Agreement number 2. This is part of, and I'm going to ask Gary to come forward and offer any comments specific to this one. There's no financial impact with this. It's simply an extension of time. But Gary, can you speak to what this agreement specifically accounts for?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. This basically is reallocating monies from previous grants and reassigning them and extending timelines. So it's just part of the normal process. These grants, I think, date back probably 4 years already. So just extending the deadlines for those.
And those are grants that we are a party to, but that are held by the Polk Regional Water Cooperative.
That is correct.
Item 10D, and since Gary's already at the podium, I'll ask him to offer comments on this as well. But as you know, back almost a year ago now, we issued an RFQ for the progressive design build of a water resource facility at Pollard Road. This is really about what is the long-term solution and approach to addressing Winter Haven's wastewater capacity needs, looking to future growth, looking to the age of the facilities that we have now. In July of last year, the commission had authorized negotiation of an agreement with Wharton Smith, Inc. That was just recently approved by the city commission earlier this calendar year. And what has come forward now is task order number 1. One of the things that I just want to say with this before I hand it off to Gary, this is a task order of significant expense. At the end of the day, this is just shy of a $12 million task order that does a lot of the preliminary analysis and assessment of multiple aspects of our wastewater treatment system. So everything from plant 3 to plant 2 to reuse systems to the ability to connect plant 2 and 3 so we can decommission plant 2, the expansion of a new wastewater treatment facility that will take us to 12 MGD and ultimately 24 MGD for processing, as well as the structural integrity of the existing wastewater treatment plant in the interim to, you know, we have a capacity there of 7.5 MGD. So we need to make sure that that facility is capable of continuing operation while these other things are being developed. That total project at the end of the day is about $180 million, $182 million, I think is the estimated cost. So when you think about when we do projects, we look at what's the engineering, design, permitting costs that go along with that. It's usually in that 10, 12, maybe even upwards of 15% of the actual construction cost. This amount is significantly less than that, but it doesn't accomplish all of those things. But I guess my point is, it is a big number, but in consideration of the total magnitude of the overall project, it is relatively right on par with where I would expect it to be. I'll also say that the amount of work that is involved in the 12 tasks, I think, that are outlined in here, pretty substantial work for the amount of money that we're expending. So with that, Gary, I'm going to let you kind of talk through this in brief detail and be able to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you, City Manager. So as City Manager was saying, this project has been envisioned for quite a while. As you recall, we originally looked at going the WIFIA route to fund this. So I believe that was some couple years ago that we actually began talking about, you know, the expansion of this facility and the decommissioning of Plant 2. So we're finally at the point on Monday evening, we'll be asking your approval of this first task order. Now, what does that mean? So the first task order basically is a lot of engineering and planning work. How do we take wastewater from Plant 2 and get it to Plant 3? So there are some alternatives that we'll be considering. We have some existing pipe that's not being used currently in the ground. We also need to look at how can we reduce the flow to Plant 2 by possibly establishing a north-south route over on the east side of the city. And then there's other considerations. Do we pump average daily flow from Plant 2 by putting equalization there, or do we pump peak daily flow? You know, just recently you approved the Harmony Master Lift Station, And that is part of this process also. We're taking flow away from the Chain of Lakes Master Lift Station to the Harmony Master Lift Station so that we would have capacity to move further flows to the south. But then beyond that is we have our existing plant, Plant 3. How do we make sure that we keep that facility operational throughout all of this work and make sure that we don't have any problems from a compliance standpoint? So we'll be looking at how we can keep operations moving at the same time that all this work is going on. And then eventually we'll be building new pieces of a future wastewater treatment plant, decommissioning Plant 2, and we'll have to make decisions about, will Plant 2 become a stormwater treatment facility, maybe from taking water from the Conine wetland park over there. The same thing at the Plant 3. Maybe we use the old Plant 3 as future stormwater treatment. So all of these decisions will be made through this process, and then we'll be constructing pieces of it, bringing back separate GMPs to the commission for consideration. So with that kind of very high level, I've got folks from Morton Smith and Kimley Horn with us. So John French, Kara Ellie. John?
Thank you, Gary. Good evening. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. We're excited about this. Like we talked about, we've been working close to 9 months on negotiating it. It's finally come to fruition. This is what we do. It's our passion. It's a large job for the city of Winter Haven. It's a large job for the state of Florida and its resources. I'm going to let Ms. Kara Elliott talk to you about the particulars of the project. I just wanted to again say thank you.
Great. Thanks, John. Thank you all for having us here today. My name is Kara Elliott. I am one of the program design managers with Kimley Horn on this project. I'm joined today by Lewis Bryant, who is my co-deputy design manager, and Jameson Tondro, who will be one of the project engineers on this job as well. I think that we've summarized the details. Thank you very much, City Manager, for covering that on what we hope to do with task order number 1. As Gary mentioned, task order number 1 really focuses on 2 primary components. The first is the preliminary engineering and planning to support some of our funding efforts and making sure that we have a really good strategic plan in place to bring all of these elements together to ensure that we have both sufficient capacity and reliable service for the city as we continue to build out this greenfield facility. The second element is focused on some early out packages at wastewater treatment plant number 3. These efforts will support the ultimate build out facility. So we're doing some early design work to harden and improve the reliability of wastewater treatment plant number 3 so that we can continue to provide reliable service while we build the new greenfield plant adjacent to that property. So here you see a kind of a high-level program schedule to help contextualize this first task order. So you can see that the initial planning efforts will come this year and into the beginning of next year, which will then be followed by the modifications to Plant 3 to make sure we have sufficient capacity and reliability. We will then begin the construction of rerouting the flows from the north area of the city currently going to wastewater treatment plant number 2 so that those can be rerouted to wastewater treatment plant number 3. At that point, we can decommission wastewater treatment plant number 2, all while we're ultimately working towards this vision of building out the 12 MGD greenfield facility adjacent to Plant 3. So again, just wanted to express our excitement and gratitude for the opportunity to work on this project. As John mentioned, we recognize its significance in our industry and really appreciate this opportunity and look forward to working with all of you. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Mayor and Commissioners, I will just kind of, we've done, this commission has done a lot of legacy type projects in the time that you've been on this commission. The last time that the city commission was making decisions for wastewater treatment plants would have been 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And so to build out new ones, this is one that hopefully carries this community for at least another 50, if not much longer. So your decisions on this one, it's not just for today, but it's really looking out for the long-term community as a whole. So
Commissioners?
any questions with that one before we move on?
I'll tell you this, until the wastewater and water facilities, I had never seen numbers for design and consulting work in this range. I mean, but I just had never seen it. So the only question I have is this. Okay, with task order 1, okay, we know we can fund that. All right, and really and truly, that's when you're putting together all of the plans that we should be able to implement. And so to the city manager and to Gary, we were talking about Whiffier, and so where are we going with it? I mean,
Well,
we're gonna spend 10 million.
so you have a project of roughly $182 million that is part of your CIP plan. Keep in mind your connection fees, your rate study that was implemented in August, September of last year is all built around the CIP as a whole. And so that factors in the long-term capital investment in these, as well as the continued pursuit of grants and funding partners.
Well, and I get all of that, T. My only thing is that as we sit here today and planning and we're implementing, and then the task order number 1 will be done in 18 months. And then we would need to move into the next one. And all I'm saying is I guess my question would be, if we don't get grants, where does that put us?
So, as you may recall, when we did the rate study, the rate study and the rates that were implemented were based on a 5% grant funding level. Okay.
Right.
This past calendar year, we submitted grant requests to the state in the amount of in excess of $200 million to help support all of the CIP for the utility. Not just this project, but all the other projects that are ongoing also. We feel pretty comfortable that we'll hit the 25% range. I've been to DEP. They know about this project. This project is on their timeline. So they know that we're expecting additional grant funding and loan funding for this project. So the way this project will be funded will be a combination of grants, SRF loans, revenue bonds, and possibly a WIFIA loan. Now, the WIFIA loan, we don't know yet because it kind of depends on what the market rate will be at that time. With the WIFIA loan will only fund 49% of the project. So we would still have to issue revenue bonds to go with a WIFIA loan. So we'll make that decision later in the year, whether it will go with WIFIA loan or revenue bonds. I anticipate that we would issue our first bonds probably first or second quarter of FY26, and then probably another 18 months after that, another revenue bond issue to support these projects.
So Mayor, I think, to summarize what Mr. Hubbard said, our funding strategy for delivering this project and others is built around a 5% grant funding into the overall cost. And certainly we have a high level of confidence that we will achieve that. And the balance of that is through debt financing that is paid back through the existing fees and connection charges and the like. The only thing that I think stands in the way of successful completion, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, what's the cost of delivering the projects, and what does inflation do with that? To what extent do the current tariffs have on production of materials that are needed for these types of things? What does the labor market dictate with that, as we've seen in past years? And then also, what happens with legislative decisions that directly impact revenues within the utility? And so I think that further speaks to our need to advocate strongly on behalf of, home rule powers when it comes to establishing utility fees and not redirecting or limiting, the surcharges and the like that are continuously on the chopping block. But I think there's strong confidence that what the commission approved in August, September of 2024 is directly in line with the delivery of this project.
I might add that the way that we've designed this project and the subsequent projects with the individual GMPs, we're going to be watching the market very closely so that if and when we issue bonds, that we hit the market at the right time. We're not in a compliance issue, so we don't have really specified timelines that we have to meet. But we got to make sure that we get that resiliency and redundancy in our system that allows us the flexibility to make timely decisions to construct when it's best for the city. So we'll be watching those markets very closely and deciding which construction packages go forward and when they go forward, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And that's what I was in my own mind just wondering, because if, let's just say you don't get the grants, we have the capacity to, because we're doing in different phases, that we could still move forward.
Right. We're taking bites of the apple or
Yes.
the elephant.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here looking at the whole elephant, and that's the problem.
And you have to do it in bites, Mayor. I mean, the fact is we've got to do this early out package on Plant 3 to make sure that it's
Yeah.
viable, that it's resilient, and it's got the integrity to meet our needs, while we're looking at how do we build the next piece of that. The connection between Plant 2 and Plant 3, what are the options for that? And the decommissioning plays with that. So there's sequences within there. Yeah, so I think that if there comes a time when, hey, we can't do this piece of it because there's some change in the funding or the cost of it, it doesn't kill the entire project.
I get it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just because it's so much, I mean, it's like so much noise. So can you break it, just to break out, like the total project estimated cost is how much?
182 million.
182 currently.
And then task order number 1 would be how much?
12, roughly.
Roughly 12 million.
And then, so are we just doing number 1, or this also is inclusive of,
So-
is the number 2 abandonment inclusive of number 1?
So as part of the task order number 1, GMPs will result of that, and we'll come back with GMPs for individual projects. And those will all add up to roughly $182 million.
And then just, so I know we've got the WIFIA loan option, we're looking for the grant, but the city also has skin in the game too, as far as being cash available that could go towards this project as well, because we've been good stewards of those transfers of funds from utilities to the general fund. and capping at 12%. What would you roughly say is in cash right now available for a project like this?
I don't know that I have
Can we know Monday?
Yeah.
Is that?
But so the other piece of that is when you look at what your debt service would be, because you're going to have to borrow to do these types of projects. But that's the design of your fee schedule is looking ahead to what is it going to take to provide safe treatment of wastewater at the capacities you need. When you need it, that's why you establish those fees to get ahead of that and be able to pay that down over time. You're not paying that $180 million in the 5 years or the 4 years that it takes you to deliver this whole project. You're paying that down over the 20 years of the bond and such.
Well, and
30 years of bond.
you want that to be the way, because it's all the people that are going to be using this facility over the next 20, 30 years should be the ones paying for this
Helping
facility.
pay for it. Absolutely. That's the
And-
concept of the bonding.
Yeah, so totally get that. So I'm just trying, and I'm not disputing the project at all. I'm just trying to break it down to a little bit easier numbers to understand. So I just would be curious, cash wise, what we look like on hand. Not that I'm suggesting that we're going to be anywhere close to paying this in cash. It's just good to have all the pieces of the puzzle when we're thinking about it up here. So.
I have a question for Gary. I know there's a lot of pieces to this. How long before we have a new wastewater treatment plant? Period.
Well, I think that you'll have the beginnings of the new wastewater plant by 2029 timeframe. I'll have to come back for that. I'll be retired by that time.
Probably me too.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think Gary's comment at the end there was he was trying to get us to name a wastewater treatment plant after him. I'd settle for a lift station. To item 10E, this is an annual contract with Ballard Partners. This is lobbying services that we engage in at the federal level, which has proved very beneficial, particularly as of late. As you know, we'll be traveling to DC in April, and Ballard is instrumental in helping organize and orchestrate the appropriate meetings to carry out and deliver on priorities for the City Commission of Winter Haven. This is the same group we've worked with over the past, I think, 3 or 4 years now. So that contract did not have any renewals. So this is a completely new contract, but at the same price. Item 10F, this is, these next two are kind of special items in the sense of really deal with our community safety pillar. And the first one is the purchase of Motorola N30 radios for emergency response and management. As you may recall, during Hurricane Milton, many people had problems with cell phone communications. There was a major communication line that was disrupted over in Hillsborough County that had a direct impact on the availability of cell phone service in our area and really throughout the Central Florida area. It's not the first time that's happened. In 2004, when we were on the old Nextel systems, those completely failed during the hurricanes of Charlie, Francis, and Jean. Even with some of our services being on the FirstNet AT&T system, we're vulnerable to disruptions in communication. So what we are proposing is the acquisition of I believe it's 100 Motorola N30 radios. These are very similar to what we're using within police and fire services today. These radios would be distributed amongst the Water Department, Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Culture, our Safe Neighborhoods unit, which is code compliance and heavily involved in damage assessment, as well as the city manager's office. It allows us to maintain active communication regardless of what the situation is at hand. We utilized what few radios we had extra this year during Hurricane Milton, and it was a game changer for us as we were without communication. not only to strengthen communication, but it creates a constant awareness of what's going on and where our crews are, and we can get messages out to them and redirect appropriately. This is a resource that will also be heavily utilized with special events. When we're doing parades, when we're doing 4th of July celebrations, community events, and we need to have a strong interface between our public safety folks and our on-the-ground public works and parks and rec folks, it becomes a game changer in that regard as well. The cost associated with the acquisition of the radios, it's actually $448,095 per the fact sheet, which is the amount shown within the slide you see, plus the recurring annual cost, I believe is how that's calculated out. Those will be distributed and paid for by the various departments that will receive the radios. So this is something we've been wanting to do for a number of years. It really became a priority when we saw how the cell service really suffered this past year. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have with that.
All right.
The 10G, this is an item that we've just added this week for the commission's consideration. So I'm going to ask Fire Chief Drew Newbern to come to the podium to be able to answer any questions, but I'll try and give a high-level overview. Our ability to respond in fire rescue services is really contingent upon the availability of the vehicles that we have. We maintain a frontline fleet of 4 engines, 1 tower truck, and 1 squad or heavy rescue unit. We also have in reserve 3 spare reserve engines and 1 spare reserve ladder unit. The problem we run into is that when those frontline engines go down, you're bringing up the reserve so you can remain in service. Some of those reserve engines are of an age that they should not be operating, and their reliability is not what you would expect from a city of our stature. The intent here is, to replace engines according to our schedule for vehicle replacement. The problem with fire trucks is it takes 42 to 48 months now from the time you order a fire truck to get that delivered. Part of that is because we do custom builds. So we spec out those engines to have the exact same compartments and certain features that we have become accustomed to. In working with Sutphen, who is the manufacturer of the more recent engines that we have acquired, we have been offered an opportunity to acquire 2 engines right now. These are engines that are spec built, but the spec is close enough to our custom design that it will certainly fit well within our operation and allow us to remove two of our engines that are 1990s. Are we going back that far, Drew?
98 and 99, yes, sir.
So those are trucks that we should not have on the road. It will also give us, I believe, probably one of the most modernized fleets in terms of any fire department that is within our immediate area. It is a true investment back into our operations and an investment for the protection of our citizens. We have identified funding for this. So these engines nowadays, in case you're interested in buying a fire truck for personal use, about $1.15 million each, for a grand total of $2.3 million. Funding for one of these engines is presently there within the capital depletion fund, so we've got the money to go ahead and buy it. Again, under normal practices, we could order that today and receive it sometime around 2029. By going this route, we can have that vehicle likely on board sometime in October of 2025. So within the next roughly 5 to 6 months. The second engine, again at $1.15 million, is not budgeted, but there is some available funds to pursue that. The recommendation is to utilize approximately $352,000 from the current capital depletion fund for that vehicle, and $698,000, almost $699,000 from fire impact fees, which can be used for vehicle purchases. You can do that in police and in fire. The department will utilize about $106,000, $107,000 from within the capital depletion fund to make up the difference to acquire that vehicle. That is just borrowing from other vehicles that are funded, and we'll need to backfill that in future years as those become ready for replacement. Drew, I want to offer you an opportunity if there's anything I've missed with respect to that on your operations and how these engines play in.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We're really excited for this opportunity. One of the things when I came in here to do is evaluate our current response models, matrix, personnel, apparatus, everything along the ways. And there's three things that the fire department needs: personnel, apparatus, and training. Those are the three key elements in order to ensure a safe community for our response. One of the elements that I found over the time that we're struggling with a little bit is the equipment and the apparatus in there. I went back through, I met with each of the vendors. We explored vendors that weren't Sutphen. We explored vendors of Pierce and E1s and a variety of others at this time to see and ensure that A, we're getting the best deal for the cost that we're getting, and B, what can we do about delivery times for the fleet. And Sutphen was able to come through for us. They were able to find 2 units that were in production today that could be on the ground running by the end of this year that could help us. Part of the challenge was we went through to be able to find the funding sources, which City Manager went over for you, which was a great collaboration with everybody involved. But this will now put all of our frontline units less than 5 years of age on the road once we receive them. It'll provide our reserve fleet status all under 20 years of service, which is a huge leap from where we are today. I do have a cool little story. If you heard my speech before, I got married and there was one of the engines in there that I took pictures of my wedding 21 years ago, and that unit was 7 years old at that point in time. So that was the status of our fleet today. So we're really looking to go.
Still in service today?
It is still in service today.
It's one of the ones we're replacing.
It is one of the ones we're replacing, and no, I do not intend to purchase it for nostalgia. But we're really trying to invest in the personnel and the apparatus to keep us on the road. Any downtime that we receive, it can be detrimental to the community, and we really want to limit any potential downtime for that. For that, I'll stand for any questions.
Are we selling the 2 old ones, and what are you going to get for them? And does that figure in the calculus at all?
We did not add any funds for that as far as anticipated costs that we're going to get. They will go into auction. The challenge is any fire truck that goes over about 10 years of service, the amount of money that you're going to get back for that is very, very minimal. We're talking maybe $15,000 a piece, but it is a little bit that can go back into the funds to replace.
Shock, you only get 15 grand for something that costs $1.1 million.
Yeah.
It's the reliability of that engine overall. The scrap it for, the parts and stuff is probably where they're getting that value out of it. But to put that in service creates certainly some liabilities for that community without investing a ton of money back into it. I do want to just say thank you to Drew and to Deputy Chief Waters and Lieutenant Strauss in the back. They were involved in really helping Drew vet this out, and certainly to our finance team for helping figure out how we can make this happen. I don't like bringing forward purchases like this that are less scheduled, but these are scheduled purchases. We're just able to do them sooner, and that certainly is a benefit. So,
how much customization, you mentioned that, is that unique to every department, or this?
Yeah, so every fire truck, which is why you don't see a lot, like an actual car lot full of fire trucks, is every fire truck is spec'd out per the agency's need. That's based upon their response type, what 90% of what they do are, how their fire tactics are. Everything is very specific to each agency. The spec trucks that we got here have about 95% in line with what we do today and what our spec was originally.
What is probably the life cycle of this the unit you're talking about? How long
It's going to be the same life cycle. So we're going to be trying to get into a closer to a 10-year replacement cycle for these units. So we're not dragging these out 20 years. And we can still get into the resale value in order to recoup some of the costs to offset. Once you get over that 10-year mark, it's pretty rough to get any money for them.
Commissioner Dawson, one of the things to kind of further speak to that we're going to look at, this became apparent to me when we had our brand new tower truck involved in an accident when an oncoming vehicle decided to hit the front end and take it out of service. You start thinking about, okay, how many front line units do I have? How much bench depth do I have? If I don't have sufficient bench depth, we're going to run into problems as well. You know, if I'm down 4 of my primaries and I only have 3 backups, that means I'm down 1 full engine. So I think looking to the future, we're going to have to add a vehicle, an additional vehicle that allows us to put 1 more in reserve as backup. You don't ever want to have as many reserve vehicles as you actually need. We run into the same thing with solid waste. You know, it's making sure you've got sufficient depth there that if you're down a vehicle, you can still deliver the service. So I think probably in the next 2+ years, we'll be looking to try and find a way to fund a whole additional vehicle that'll allow us to put, instead of, how many do you have in reserve now? 4?
3 engines.
So you'll be able to have 4 reserve vehicles, which gives you a little more sense of safety, security there.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Drew.
Thank you.
So we're on to our resolutions, R2503.
I won't spend too much time on these, Mayor and Commissioners, but Katrina, if you could just go to the map on this one so we point out where this is. This is the Willowbrook North final plat approval. So they did issue a performance bond for this development, $7.2 million to complete all the remaining infrastructure items. So we do have that bond that includes earthwork, sanitary sewer, potable water, stormwater management, engineering certification. This is 132.9 plus or minus acres, about 434 building lots, 9 common lots. It is a CDD, so all that water and sewer is going to be the city's. All the roads, street lighting, and drainage will be maintained by the CDD. This is also not that it has anything to do with this project, but generally what borders our efforts to create Willowbrook Road. So that would run along, MJ, correct me if I'm not wrong, I think on the inside, yes, thank you, Kat. So that's where Willowbrook Road would extend down through there.
So we don't have an idea where all the lots are going to be yet, or do we?
Yes.
Or is that?
Yes, sir. There's a depiction of the plat in Exhibit B of your.
Yeah, I don't
fact
have
sheet.
my iPad with me. I wasn't sure if there was one on here or not. I know I'm slacking. We don't have one in here.
No,
I
sir.
don't think there's a slide.
I don't think there's not a slide. We can add that for Monday if you like, but it is shown within the exhibit. It's a 16-page exhibit.
I will
Because it's
check it
such a
out
large-
tonight.
The item 11B, this is approval of a grant with DOT that has to be done through resolution. So this pertains to the beacon at the airport. Troy, would you like to speak to this since you're the technical expert on that matter?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. So the airport beacon is essentially a lighthouse for an airport. If you've ever been driven by our airport at night, you'll see it's not always lit up. And that's to conserve electricity from our normal resources out there. So the airport beacon essentially, it flashes white, green for a civilian, double green, white for military, and white and yellow for a heliport. Well, over the past year, the green side of our beacon has gone out several times. The repairs for each time, because it consists of getting an 85-foot boom lift every time we want to replace a bulb. We've replaced several bulbs. We've replaced several ballasts. And for some reason unknown to the electricians, the green side continues to go out. So I reached out to our partners at the Florida Department of Transportation, and they've agreed to go ahead and replace this beacon in an 80-20 grant. There's actually 2 beacons on the field because when the new one was installed, they didn't remove the old one. So this grant covers removing both old beacons and then adding a new LED beacon that has a tilt pull that will fold down to make it much easier serviceable, so we won't need a lift anymore.
That's good. Go ahead.
Where are we with the temporary, or with the new tower that we've been talking about coordinating? Excuse me. Can you give us an update on that, please?
Yes, sir. So we actually had our kickoff meeting about 3 weeks back with Frequentis. The equipment for the Bartow site has started arriving. In later this month, Frequentis is going to bring out a drone. We have 3 sites identified. We're going to take this drone between 65 and 80 feet in the air and kind of evaluate which side is going to have the best potential, where we can see the lake with Brown Seaplane Base and the overall view of the airfield. Late summer, we'll start to see our Winter Haven equipment come in, and we've already started equipping our temporary tower, because our temporary tower that we use for Sun and Fun is going to be utilized as a training tower for the controllers down at the Bartow facility. We fully anticipate this tower to be operational November, December, this time frame. Now, why that won't see FAA certification right then, the tower will be advisory in nature, which will operate in the capacity that it does for us during the Sun and Fun. In light of recent events and the stuff that's gone on in the FAA world right now, I think we're going to see a bigger drive and a push for this technology. Lately, our partner, John Helms down at Bartow, and Blake Swafford with Hanson, they had the opportunity to go up to the FAA Tech Center in Atlantic City, and they got to view this technology firsthand. And they are standing there in front of 270 degrees of screen. Okay, there's a pair of binoculars sitting on the table, and mind you, they're live at Atlantic City, complete training environment. John Helms asked him why there's a pair of binoculars on the table if you're looking at TV screens. The resolution is so high on these cameras that when he picked up the binoculars to look at these TV screens, what was a tiny little plane on the screen became full scale. So it's amazing what this technology can do, and it can pick up an aircraft 4 miles out with zero visibility. So given recent events, I think we're going to see a driver push, and I think it's exciting that Winter Haven will be named one of the first truly remote tower locations in the United States.
And certainly, with so the beacon's a big safety piece. The tower's a big safety piece. As you know, our trip to DC in April, we are focusing heavily on dedicated frequency. That's job number one while we're in DC, is to try and get a dedicated frequency. So yeah. Thank you, Troy.
Sir. Right. Thank you, Troy.
Item 10 or 11C, this is final plat approval for the Crescent Point subdivision. This is going to be located south of on County Road 653. As you can see here, to the north of this is going to be Chain of Lakes Elementary. So this is 37 building lots, 3 common lots that consist of the stormwater and open space areas, lift stations, rights-of-way dedication. All water and sewer in this subdivision will be maintained by the city. All drainage conveyances and stormwater areas will be maintained by the HOA. And so this is recommending approval of the resolution. Eric, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think only to add that our staff engineering department worked closely with the developers of this project to resolve a water line realignment that needed to happen on the subdivision. That is complete. So they're all ready to go.
All right. Thank you.
Item 12A, this is a request for a rezoning. Eric, would you like to present this one, please?
Did I unplug? Okay. Yeah, so Avid Group LLC is the petitioner in this request. They're requesting to rezone approximately 5-acre parcel from I-1 to C3. Their intended use is to develop the property with a 3-lot commercial subdivision. So it is kind of a down zone. It's currently zoned industrial, I-1. They want to zone C3 so they'd be more consistent with commercial uses. It is consistent with the existing future land use on the parcel and surrounding uses. Again, there would be no financial impact. The Planning Commission did hear this on February 4th and recommended approval. All notifications were met, and staff will recommend approval. Again, it's kind of a down zoning. Right now it's I-1. They could do things like auto repair, truck repair, things like that, warehouses, manufacturing. So this would be zoning at C3 for retail, office, commercial uses.
Commissioners, we did, just so you're aware, and I think Vanessa, the city clerk, has shared this with you, we did have one of our residents who is in this area that didn't speak at a planning commission meeting, but intends to attend for Monday night, that has expressed a need. She has a hearing impairment, and not that she needs a special accommodation for that, but when this item comes up for discussion, just that the commission speaks to their microphones at a volume that she can understand. But she doesn't need a special accommodation, but I just want to remind you of that if you had seen that email come through. And then the last item, after much effort, we have our ordinance 2513, which we will basically call our clean air ordinance for our parks and public recreation areas. We don't really have any public beaches anymore, but should that change with all the lakes we have over time, this which is consistent with state statute, will prohibit the smoking or vaping of tobacco and tobacco-based products in our park spaces. So MLK Park, our playgrounds, our sports facilities. It does not address cigars because that is something that is exempted within the state statute. It is consistent with the Polk County ordinance that is similar in nature. It does not address marijuana because marijuana is an illegal substance to have in your possession and certainly to smoke within our public spaces. Should that come back at some point for recreational consideration on the ballot and be successful, then I'm sure we will revisit this based upon whatever laws are in place that abide with that. But for now, this prohibits smoking and vaping in our public park spaces. Julie Adams and her team researched this with our state association, her peers, and other agencies. City attorney helped craft this. I'll give him an opportunity to weigh in if I've missed anything.
You have not.
And we'll be happy to answer any questions. I know this was something that was a priority to the commission to bring back.
Why would we not go ahead and just include marijuana? What's the downside?
Well, first of all, marijuana, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you were caught smoking marijuana, that would be a violation of state law. Number one.
Memory serves, this all became because people were walking around down at MLK smelling marijuana burning, and we decided to do it through cigarettes. But I'm just trying to figure out why we couldn't list them too. I granted it's illegal, but
Yes, and I would agree with the city attorney on that, that if there's people that are in possession of marijuana, and certainly smoking marijuana in public spaces, that's a violation of state law.
Medical marijuana
Can't smoke it in public spaces.
by statute or
By you cannot smoke medical marijuana in
State law.
by state law in public spaces. You can consume it in your home,
okay.
but you can't be out in MLK Park.
I just don't know why we wouldn't go ahead and include it for posterity, but whatever.
I think we're anxious to see that if that does come back, and I think that would. I feel that one of the concerns of the voters, from my own perspective on that recreational bill, was those very issues of what are the restrictions around it if it were to pass. And I think that that's something that has been expressed back to the legislators. If this is coming back, what are the laws? How's this going to be determined, where and when? My expectation is that it would be considered much like an open container, that we don't allow open containers in the public realm. When I was in Denver last week, I had an opportunity to speak with some peers from the state of Michigan that have recreational marijuana and where that is allowed and not allowed. And again, in public spaces, it's not, but in consumption lounges and places it is. We need to see what those laws speak to at that point in time. And I think that this is such that we can easily amend this based upon the rights that would be granted to us by the legislature at that time.
All right. So cigars are.
Commissioner Dawson, I will say that the cigar lobby in the state of Florida is very strong. Strong enough that when the state took away the preemption of smoking at the control or regulation of local municipalities, they specifically carved out unfiltered cigars. So that means that you can have an Arturo Fuente, but you can't have a Swisher Sweet. So those tipped cigars are not an unfiltered cigar. But yeah, that's within the statute itself. And the same applies to state beaches and, yeah.
All right, I won't question them. Any other questions? All right, so that's it for the agenda.
Yes, sir.
So now we can have our strategic updates.
Yes, sir. So Katrina, can we go to the next? There you go. So we are at the final one, I believe, of our first round of pillar updates. This is on economic sustainability, which as you see from your slide there, this is about fostering innovation to ensure enduring success. This deals with everything from the job market and workforce to how we procure items for our own operations and delivery of services, what makes Winter Haven attractive to companies and industries. That's our incentive packages and support that we offer, our support for local and small businesses. So this evening we have Bethany Owen, who is our procurement officer, who handles this $300 million budget that the city operates, everything that is outside of the staffing aspects of that pretty much runs through her office. So we're going to hear from her this evening, as well as from Eric Labby, our Director of Economic Opportunity and Community Investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I've got the privilege of addressing updates relative to the economic sustainability pillar, along with my partner, Eric Labby. Tonight, I am going to be touching on procurement updates to include our efforts to support local small businesses. And finally, Eric will be addressing growth in the city as measured by permitting, as well as sharing some success stories and pictures. What I'd like to go over first, though, would be our procurement by the numbers. Before I get into that, I'd kind of like to give you a brief overview of what our office does. So by city charter, expenditures up to $5,000 can be handled within the departments. Expenses over that actually must go through a competitive bid process, which is where we step in. My office works with the various departments to issue those solicitations to make those purchases. So you can see on your screen here that in 2023, we had 56 solicitations that were distributed by our office. The following year, we dipped slightly to 44 solicitations. And it's my firm opinion that that decrease in the number of bids that we've had to go put out and work with the departments to put out is a direct result of use of alternative procurement methods, such as piggybacking and cooperative. Both of those utilize a publicly announced competitive solicitation by another entity, saving us the work and affording staff a quicker avenue to the end result and frequently lower pricing. Now, the term piggyback, it just refers to our use of a solicitation issued by another entity, something that we have been doing for a number of years, saving us plenty of time. And you can see that we actually have 47 piggyback contracts. We've added a few more in the last couple of days. Reasons that we consider piggybacking go well beyond just the saving some time. For instance, a good example would be, say, an Orlando, Tampa, Polk County solicitation. That solicitation has very likely reached a broader pool of suppliers than even we could here in town. So they would then also get potentially a better price than we might here in this city. So the end result for the city of Winter Haven, when we utilize those, is better price as well as the time savings, and that is certainly a win-win for everyone. A more recent tool that we have added to our procurement toolbox is the National Purchasing Cooperatives, Sourcewell, and Omnia Partners. Now, these co-ops offer the advantage of readily piggybackable contracts for immediate use. Currently, we have 40 of these agreements in use citywide. Recently, these co-ops have also launched platforms similar to what you and I utilize when we purchase off of Amazon. And in fact, Amazon and Walmart are both available to us for purchase through the Omnia Partners contract. Staff is currently working with CFO Scott to implement a citywide Amazon business account to expedite purchases, obtain public sector pricing, receive rebates, and to track and monitor our spend. So procurement's local reach. One of the things that's near and dear to my heart, as well as the city's, is engaging the local community in our growth. And part of that involves employing them to foster that community spirit, as well as to keep our taxpayer dollars local. A recent initiative implemented has been the use of social media to market our bid opportunities locally so that our local vendors can respond. Additionally, staff has also presented at the Central Florida Business Expo held at the RP Funding Center, and that was at the invitation of the City of Lakeland and in concert with procurement professionals from Lakeland, Polk County, and the Sheriff's Department. That event is an annual event, and it focuses on inviting small and minority businesses to the table to teach them all about how we issue our solicitations and how they can get on board. So, what's ahead for procurement? Sometimes that actually takes a look behind to see where we need to go forward. As you all know, 2020 was a very difficult year for everyone. Some more than others. And one result was a failure of many businesses, which we saw as a reduction in the pool of suppliers locally. With that reduction, utilizing co-ops and piggybacks helped, but it didn't always do the trick. So one of the challenges for us has been locating experienced suppliers. So anything that we can do to help those new small business in town helps everyone out. For example, minor changes to things like our longevity requirements creates opportunities for newer businesses to participate. Instead of requiring, say, 10 years of experience in the field, we work with the departments to talk to them about the doors that requirement closes and how, if they were to reduce that to, say, 3 to 5 years of experience for all of the new businesses that are coming around, that can actually open up doors to those new small businesses to help them out, which of course helps us. Last but not least, what is on the horizon for us here in procurement? Well, staff is going to be implementing a new training session targeting small, disadvantaged, and minority enterprises. So watch for that in the near future. Everything that I have talked about tonight has been small steps, but we're really hoping that those little small things that we can do will make bigger benefits for everyone. I appreciate your attention this evening, and with that, I will turn it over to Eric to talk about development.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. As we fly over our beautiful downtown, I want to talk about economic sustainability, economic development, resiliency, and what I want to communicate with this aerial is that it's really, we are playing the long game. These are efforts for the long-term betterment of our community as we grow and develop, and remind you that, you know, the initial conversations about redeveloping our downtown initially happened more than 3 decades ago. They were talking about maybe trying to set up a CRA to do something in our downtown. You know, fast forward to the CRAs being created in 2000, to the library being relocated downtown, a number of complete street projects that revitalized much of our downtown and encouraged the private sector to invest. That's really what economic sustainability, economic development, creating resiliency in your local market is all about. We've done a good job in the city of Winter Haven, and we continue to work. Again, playing that long game, doing things now that will impact the quality of life in our community, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. So a little snapshot in time along the commercial development side. Prior to fiscal year 22, we generally issued somewhere between 5, 6, 7, 8 commercial permits a year was kind of our norm. In 2022, we saw 12 commercial permits. These are for new construction projects. In 23, we saw a jump to 23 commercial projects, mainly because of multifamily apartment buildings contributed to that increase. They are actually permitted as a new commercial permit. You can see in 24, 15, and so far in 25, just through January, from October to January 31st, we've issued 14. So generally, we're seeing an uptick in commercial permits, and we're seeing kind of a transition in commercial permitting in the city of Winter Haven. We're seeing more national brands, and we're seeing a lot in terms of healthcare and new retail that is associated with a lot of the growth that we've seen in the last 10 or 15 years. Sort of spurring on that national attention. Some of the things that we have in our toolbox to help on the commercial development side, one is at the county level. That's the ad valorem tax exemption that they offer. This is mostly for targeted industries, so warehouses, manufacturing. It's based around job creation and investment. So a lot of the new warehousing and manufacturing that we see in the city of Winter Haven at large scale can utilize that ad valorem tax exemption. We implemented tax increment rebates. You all know what that is all about within our CRAs, as well as we offer reimbursement grants for businesses. I want to highlight that we are working on 2 small business grants that are in development. One is as it relates to the retail strategies that you all approved, which is that online platform where businesses can go on and learn how to better run certain aspects of their small businesses. But we want to couple that with a small grant available through the CRA to implement some of those ideas that they learn, as well as a Florence Villa small business grant that we are currently working on the outline of how that would work within the Florence Villa CRA. Couple of pictures to share. If you haven't seen them on the healthcare side, this is Millennium Physicians building. If you remember that building right here in the heart of our downtown, that was really kind of like 2 separate buildings with a breezeway through the middle that had a few offices in it. That breezeway has been enclosed. It will house about 20 physicians in there. So great jobs, great new healthcare opportunity, and of course the Advent ER that will soon be coupled with a full-scale hospital out on Cypress Gardens Boulevard. Kind of more in the downtown area, we see the Upper Crust Pizza, which right out our door here, which I frequent quite often. They utilized a couple of incentives available through the CRA, including facade grant and alleyway improvement grant, to help get that business up and going, as well as a new Sonny's Barbecue. We're all happy to have that back in town. On the industrial development side, this is where we really get our bang for our buck as far as our efforts in terms of being able to buy new fire trucks, being able to create value in the city of Winter Haven. There's job growth, which of course is good for the economy, but they have a high taxable value compared to a low impact on public services, which really creates that diversification, that resiliency that you want in your local economy. So here's a little drone footage of the ILC. I know that Bruce is behind me in the audience, so I won't say too much, but that's the 400,000 square foot Coca-Cola building. And as we pan to the left, you'll see that in comparison to the 1.2 million square foot warehouse building that we hope very shortly will have a tenant. That is in the works, and that's all I'll say about that. Florida Can, which you saw on the north side as you panned over, was recently purchased by Ball, as you know, who has expansion plans that they've communicated, as well as Project Mist, who began their site work out there. We hope to get them up and going again soon, as well as Project Ray, which has been communicated to you in the past. These are all highly taxable projects that create good paying jobs in our community. We really work hard in conjunction with the Winter Haven EDC to get these here. And then we have redevelopment opportunities. This is the site on US 17 across from the field house that was in the newspaper for potentially a new national big box. They are working through the entitlement process. No deal is done until it's completely done. So there's, still 100 things that might, fall apart in that transaction, but we hope that site will be redeveloped very soon within the city of Winter Haven. That is a gateway into our community. And so we're looking forward to getting that project up and going. This is an interesting slide that I want to share with you around housing diversification. And we worked really hard to bring some multifamily into the city of Winter Haven. And I want to show you why. For about 3 decades in the city of Winter Haven, we hovered at about 34 to 35% of our housing inventory in the city limits was multifamily. If you look at this chart, the orange represents your percentage of, I think that's orange, percentage of multifamily in your community. The dark blue is single family and the green is other. So mobile homes, that type of thing. And you see, we hovered for about 3 decades at about 35% multifamily. It started to tick down when we started experiencing growth. You can see in 2014, it was 33%. And then 32%, and then 31%, and then 30%. By 2021, it was 27.4%. That is the lowest percentage of multifamily that we had in our community since 1980. And people were feeling it. People couldn't move. They couldn't find places to live. They couldn't find apartments. And so we worked really hard on trying to get some more units. We permitted about 1,500 units. As you know, in the city of Winter Haven, there's some more under construction currently. That has brought us up, our 2024 number has brought us back up to about 29% of our housing inventory is multifamily. So we're getting back closer to where we want to be in terms of housing diversification. Still a little bit more work to do. Some of those projects include the Waverly out on Cypress Gardens Boulevard, Carlton at Lake Dexter, which is beautiful, which, by the way, Mayor, over 1,000 trees were planted on that property in conjunction with the apartments, where there weren't any trees on that property before. If you remember, it was an old burned out grove.
That's great news.
This is the Breeze under construction right here in downtown. And this is actually a picture of not of a multifamily apartment complex. This is a picture of the Publix that's under construction on Dundee. I threw that in there to say that as we add new units for people to live in, and as we attract more retail and different opportunities for retail in different locations, it will change our traffic patterns in the city of Winter Haven. And we anticipate it will change them for the better. Instead of coming all the way to US 17 or coming all the way downtown for healthcare services, now we have more options, and people who live closer to these new options will have shorter traveling distance to get to their services. Again, the Pros, you're familiar with that, and Florence Place that opened right up here on MLK Boulevard. And that concludes my presentation. We'll stand for any questions you may have. And I think.
Go ahead, Brad. Well, you already answered one question. So apparently Target has not pulled a permit, but can you tell me if Publix has pulled a permit off of out Thompson Nursery Road? That's the latest rumor I keep hearing, out near the 7-Eleven or whatever.
Ruby Lake at Thompson Nursery. Let me verify for sure. I believe they have an approved site plan, but let me verify and I'll have that answer for you on Monday.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Someone else? Go ahead.
We talked several times about small business initiatives, either through the CRA, and this is one thing that I'm hoping to talk about Monday night in our CRA meeting. But the Heart for Winter Haven is on the heels of launching the first CDFI in Polk County. And they will service not only Polk County, but Highlands and Hardee County as well. But this is going to be invaluable going forward once this thing gets off the ground, to have a CDFI located right here in the city of Winter Haven. So I want to be sure, number one, I think it would be important for Heart for Winter Haven to come do a presentation on the CDFI. Not a lot of people actually understand what that is or how it operates or what it's for. And then also, I just want to be sure, and I'm going to, again, discuss this Monday night, but that we are, actively participating to do whatever we can from our CRAs to help facilitate the CDFI launch and provide grants and funding to them so that they can facilitate that out. Because generally, these are folks that are not bankable yet. They're businesses that are just getting off the ground. They're within the first 2 years of operation. They can't go to a bank to get financing. And so a CDFI really fills that gap and provides funding so that small businesses can get established. So we need to be sure that we're helping and that we're a backbone in getting those things launched as well.
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem, I fully agree with what you're saying there. And I think as soon as that program is ready to have investment in it, the city is, I would recommend to the commission through budget and other means to support that, because it does go right back into the immediate community, and it is safeguarded investment. They are putting in play the necessary controls for that. The people would not necessarily be able to get, as you said, bank qualified loans otherwise. So I think it is a very important tool for helping get small business off the ground for people. Our next update will occur on Wednesday, April 9th. I may tweak that a bit because as I'm sharing with the commission in some briefings that we're doing, we have planned out our strategic planning retreat update for this first year of the plan. So I believe, Katrina, that is April. Remember the dates? It's right before Good Friday. It's the Thursday before Good Friday, that the 15th and 16th of April. And we'll be getting that agenda out to you once it is completely finalized. So we will judge that around the responsible government pillar. So
It's actually 16, 17.
sorry, the city attorney is correcting himself. It's the 16th and 17th.
The 15th is something else.
It's Good Tuesday.
Yes.
All right, that's it.
That's all we have this evening, sir.
We have no other reports. So I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
We stand adjourned.
Right.